In this video, I'm going to show you how to use and include components that have been created either by yourself or by Dronelink. And I'm going to go back to this plan that I had created in the last video, but just a quick review. So I'm taking off from here, I'm flying to here. This is a component that I created. It's an orbit that takes pictures as it flies around, interval pictures as it flies around every 2 seconds. It flies over here, it switches to video mode, and actually looks at this point of interest, turns on video, flies this, looking at this location. Then we copied this, we created another component, and it flies this orbit, looking at the center, taking interval pictures, and then again we switched over to video mode. Now, I'm going to do one thing I'm going to add to this plan. I want to make absolutely sure that everything is reset and the camera, the drone, everything's clear to go before I take off. So under my approach, I have a list right now that I created under my immediate list. And I want to add one more component to it. And Dronelink has actually created a few different components already that you can use that reset the drone or reset the camera. So if I go new component and I say include from repository, this also assumes that I've starred a few of the Dronelink repos that you should have done based upon an earlier video, or if you click on this link where it says show all from Dronelink. Now, if I search for reset, you'll see there's a settings reset, a camera settings reset, a drone settings reset, a gimbal settings reset. There's a few different resets that I can pull in from Dronelink. I want to pull in the settings reset, and I can look at this in more detail if I want, but I'm going to add it in, so then I can click on this and I can see all the things that it's actually a list of lists here. So there's a drone, it includes a drone setting reset, which does all this stuff. It does the camera settings reset. Now, realistically, what I probably want to do is do the settings reset before I move to my settings. So I'm going to take this guy here, I'm going to move it to the top. So this settings reset happens first, and then my personal settings get set after. So right now we have a component coming in from a repo, we have a component that was replicated, and then we have the other optimal video settings that I created over here. Now, how can we see all that? If I go back to my list of components, and I can actually do it other places, but I'm going to go back to here so you can see my orbit, my path, my new orbit, and my new path. It's a little paper clipping thing here. It says included components. If I click on this, it will show me all of the components that I've created here that are being used. There's my original orbit. There's the settings reset that I added in. Then it's added in these three. These are actually three separate components that have come in from Dronelink. There's a drone settings reset, a camera settings reset, and a gimbal settings reset, which are actually part of the settings reset. Then there's the new orbit, and then there is this optimal video settings reset that I created. So you can see all of these components that have come in through being included into this mission. Now, what does all that mean? What is the implication of this type of a configuration outside of the fact that it makes things very easy and quick to create components? Let's say, for example, that I'm done with this. I've taken this, I've flown this mission, and now I've flown a bunch of other missions, but in the meantime, I kind of realized that while I designed this optimal video settings, there's another setting that I want to put in here. I want to make sure that whenever I fly video, not only do I set the ISO, I want to set the white balance. So if I go under new component, I'm under my component right now, I'm not under the plan, and I'm going to search for white balance, and I'm going to set my camera setting white balance, and I'm going to set it to sunny. Right? So I've now added that white balance preset to this. So obviously, any time that I go back and I create a new mission and I add in this optimal video settings, it will include all these 6 commands. But remember, in that other plan that I created, I used this component. So let's go back and open up that plan again and see what happened. Now, Dronelink Smart, it says Dronelink's available for one included component. It's telling me that something changed. I can also see it here. Under this paperclip, there's now a 1 that says that the component has been changed. If I click on this paperclip, it shows all the things I saw before, but it also shows that there was a change made to my settings here. Now I can do one of two things. I can accept the change. If I accept the change, it's going to show up in my list. It's going to actually update that list. If I reject it, it's not going to change. It's going to come up every single time that thing changes. It's going to ask me again if I want to accept it. If I reach the point where I don't want to make that change anymore, I can click this button here. This will unlink this component from the original component. So now it's totally by itself. Now I'm going to show you why that's important. So let's just say, for example, I want to accept this. All right. So I'm going to accept this. All right. So now if I go into my other path that I created and I look at my immediate settings where I've been using that Eric's Optimal Video Settings component, I drill down and you can see that it has all 6 components added in. But remember, that's just a command, and that's just a command setting, and that's pretty typical for what you're using it for. Let me just show you where this has some interesting implications. So right now, this orbit and this orbit are actually both components. But they include not only camera settings, but they also include drone settings. So let's close this. Let's go back to my repo, and I'm going to open up that new orbit that I created. This is a new orbit component. So let's say that I change this. So let's say that I made it much larger, like this. I wanted to show more of that building. So instead of a smaller orbit, it's a larger orbit, which may be perfect for this setting. Right? So I think I'm good. I close it. Now let's go back to our original mission again. Let's see what happened. I am now notified that I've got 2 changes in this orbit and in this orbit, and I can see them when I go here. I have the 2, it's notifying me these 2 changes. Now it has all of the other included components as well. Let's remember 2 things that we did here. First of all, this orbit, I added in a included component that did a reset for all of my settings. If you remember, if I drill down here and I look at my immediate component, I drill down to immediate, I included the settings reset. That's different from what's in the original component. In addition to that, maybe I don't want to have this thing this large. If I accept the change, it's going to change the orbit size. So let's show you what I mean by that. If I go in here and on the first orbit, let's say I accept this. It's going to say, do you want to accept these orbits? The changes will be copied in a new version. I'm going to say accept. It changed the orbit size, so maybe I even wanted it to do that. So maybe that's okay. So I think I'm good. But the interesting thing is that I lost that settings reset. And you can see it a couple places. First of all, if I click here, the other settings that other included settings that I had are gone. And I can also go over here and I click on here and go into my immediate list. That settings reset that I put in here is gone as well. So what I may want to do in this case, first of all, I can use the undo button and push it back, and that will make things go back to normal. I may decide at this point that, you know, I either want to reject it or I want to disconnect it altogether. So I can unlink this. I can say unlink. Now this component is by itself. Now I can decide if I want to accept the change on this new orbit. Maybe I will on this one. So I say accept. Now I've got this new orbit here. So you can see how powerful, and yet you've got to be a little careful when you start accepting changes that are coming back. We find the most useful use case for this is if you're creating camera commands that you think are optimal for certain settings, and you want to make sure that those settings stay consistent from plan to plan to plan. But let me show you a few other examples, a few other components and paths that are available to you.